Hello, everyone, and welcome back to this episode of Just Another Year Chicago. My name is Nick Brody, joined alongside my good friend and co-host, Tony Sapita. Today, we are going over our third mock draft for the Chicago Bears. Obviously, now with free agency underway, it gives us a little bit more of a clear picture exactly what the direction that the Chicago Bears are going in. And we have a new pick this year from the last time we did our mock draft, thanks to the Khalil Mack trade that gave us a second-round pick from the Los Angeles Chargers. Almost said the San Diego Chargers. I do it every time, but I caught myself there. This draft is in late April this year, from April 28th through the 30th. The Bears do not have a first round pick. So on the first day, the Bears are going to be quiet as of right now, but they could take their first two picks and trade into the first round. You never know. And the reason why we don't have a first round pick is because of the Justin Fields trades with the Giants last year. But again, we can trade into the third round. And it will not be, don't expect a trade like the Chiefs and Dolphins just pulled off with Tyreek Hill, who, if you didn't hear, was traded to the Miami Dolphins, and he is now the highest paid wide receiver in NFL history on a 4-year, $120 million contract with $72 million guaranteed. The Chiefs received from the Dolphins a first, second, and fourth this year, along with a fourth and sixth in the future. They have not disclosed if that's 2023, 2024, whatever it is. But that's a whole lot of money for Tyreek Hill, and he is running to the bank as fast as he is, so he's probably already there and back 3 times by now. So the Bears still have a lot of key areas of needs even after free agency. Ryan Poles says he wasn't going to be too active in free agency this year. In fact, he wants to build this team through the draft. So Tony and I will be breaking it down, but Tony, before we begin, after free agency, considering everything that Ryan Poles has talked about, the Larry Ogunjobi situation at defensive tackle, what is your number one area of need still that Ryan Poles needs to address in the draft?
Yeah, if we hadn't signed Lucas Patrick from the Packers, I would have probably said offensive line. But because we did kind of address that, I'm going to say wide receiver because, man, did we really not do much of that. I know we got Equinemius St. Brown. Don't get me wrong. Good pickup,
I tried saying his name last episode, by the way, when I did solo, and I botched it. So good for you, Hidden.
It's a heck of a name. It is a heck of a name. Notre Dame star. So that we should probably go wide receiver. I think, it won't bother me if they go offensive line because that is obvious. Like we've seen the Colts, their entire team is built around the fact their offensive line is incredible. So I won't cry if they go offensive line, but I do think they'll probably target more wide receivers. So
that leads into your first pick.
Should we get right into it? All right. Pick number 1, round 2, 39th overall pick. I am taking a wide receiver with Christian Watson out of North Dakota State. This one, I kind of switched it up from what I had been doing where it was the Power 5 conference, big school guys. So this guy is 6'4", 208 pounds, 22 years old. He ran a 4.36 40. So he does have the speed to go with his size. He had a 38.5-inch vertical jump, 136-inch broad jump. He has size, speed, and athleticism. So I do believe he can be molded into a true NFL talent. Obviously, he did go to an FCS school, so there is questions about the competition, and I think that's fair, of course. But as we've seen, not just even in the NFL, but across all sports, the coaching at the NFL level is so good that as long as you have the ability to be coached and just that size and that raw talent already, you can't teach size, can't teach speed. As long as you have that already, especially with hopefully the coaching staff the Bears just brought in, that is something that they can work on with them. So I think it'd be a good pick. I think it'd be an interesting pick. I don't know.
I agree this guy's an absolute beast because he Illinois State would play them every single year, whether I would watch it on TV or actually see it in person when I'd go down for the North Dakota State Illinois State game, which is, if you don't know, Illinois State's biggest rival technically, because that's the last team that they played in the championship. North Dakota State wins it literally every single year. This guy is an absolute monster. Like, he is very big. He's super fast. He burned defenders, but again, it's FCS competition. So I'm not gonna put too much on him, but I think he would be an instant wide receiver 2, or at least maybe even like for sure wide receiver 2 for the Chicago Bears, if not wide receiver 3. If things came down to it, he needed a little more experience, but I think it'd be a great signing. Our draft, exactly. But my pick at 39th is going to be Kenyon Green, offensive guard out of Texas A&M. So we're going to a big football division over at Texas A&M. 6'4", 324, 21 years old. So he's a junior, went for the draft, and he's honestly, like they had him actually at the 39th pick for the Chicago Bears, according to power rankings. So that makes me feel good that the Bears have a decent shot at getting this guy. Scouts say that he has an NFL ready frame, can compete with defensive linemen quickly, and can get even bigger. So this guy all he has to do is go to Morton's, go to Carson's, anywhere with a lot of steak and ribs. And this guy could put on 40 pounds instantly in Chicago, or even go to Lou Melinati's and get a nice deep dish with all the meat that you can absolutely put on. But he's a strong run blocker too. And Dave Montgomery is obviously looking for maulers like that. Lucas Patrick brings that in. Cody Whitehair already has shown that. You bring this guy in, he'd be an instant starter on this offensive line. So excited about that. And to kind of go back, this would have been my number one area of need. I'm shocked that the Bears have been very quiet at the offensive line position, considering how much talent was in free agency. But again, offensive linemen appreciate it when you draft them and keep them, because you took a chance on that big guy who they could blow out their knee any single day. They're in the trenches. They're the ones getting beat up. And overall, I like him a lot. But he's got strong leg power too. He's quick off the ball and a strong pass blocker as well. His run blocking is his key. But he's a big penalty guy. Gets a lot of holding calls, a lot of false starts. Bears have struggled with that forever. That's why I think he falls a little bit, but something that the Bears hopefully can work on with him deeply. Tony, before we go to pick number 48 from the Los Angeles Chargers, any comments on Green?
Yeah, I just want to say that the only reason I probably didn't take this guy first with my pick is I saw you already filled out the sheet with him on there, so I didn't want to copy you directly. I think it's a great pick. I do honestly think that is where the Bears will go. If they don't go wide receiver, that is definitely where they will go, in my opinion.
And it's also exciting that the Bears have 2 picks, 13 picks apart. Like they could take both the next pick that we're doing from the Los Angeles Chargers, number 48, and the Bears could take both of those and trade into the first round and get a top 5 lineman. And this guy easily could be a top 10 lineman if he wasn't so penalty happy. So something that the Bears could look out for. But let's go to pick number 48 from the Los Angeles Chargers in the Khalil Mack trade. Another key area of need, I'm flipping it with Tony, and Tony's actually flipping it as well, is I'm going with wide receiver at this pick. David Bell, wide receiver from Purdue. I think he'll still be available. I had him in the 3rd round last time, but I'm playing it safe now that we have this pick and getting him in the 2nd round. He's been in a lot of Bears mock drafts. A lot of people like him. Local to the area, or obviously he went to Purdue, knows the weather, knows the element of being a Chicago Bear, at least till Arlington is built. But he's 6'2", 205, big wide receiver. Huge year last year, could make him a great steal for a stacked wide receiver class. In 2021, he had 93 receptions for almost 1,300 yards, 13.8 yard per catch, and 6 touchdowns. Again, it's college, so either you absolutely score every single touchdown or you're more of a role player. And Purdue had a decent offense this past year. So this guy still had almost 1,300 yards. He's a big target who fields needs and also is fast to outbeat defenders. If they were to take 2 wide receivers with the first 2 picks of this draft, I wouldn't be upset either, because this is also a deep offensive line class. But if you were to get 2 for sure weapons, Mooney, Bell, and you said Watson, I think that'd be stupid good. That's all I'm going to say there. But Tony, you're going with a guard with your pick at number 48. Where are you going with?
Yeah, so I'm going with Jameer Salyer. Yep, nailed it. Guard out of Georgia. This guy's a little bit bigger, and I'll kind of get into all my reasoning. I know Poles has been very clear about what he wants to do exactly, but so this guy is interesting because he has played all 5 positions. He played all 5 positions in college, offensive line positions, obviously, not wide receiver. As a tackle, he would probably be a later pick, probably the late rounds, but as a guard, he can go as early as that early 2nd round. So honestly, he might not even fall to the Bears depending on how teams start looking at him. He does have a ton of upside on the interior, this size, power, and length. He has outstanding upper body strength because he got in 31 reps at the bench press at the combine, 34-inch arms. So he's, like I said, he played all 5 offensive line positions at Georgia, which is why I know he's a little bit bigger of a guy. He's maybe not the exact. He didn't run the 40 either, which is annoying. So I don't know how quick he is, but he's maybe not exactly.
That's usually not a good sign.
Yeah, exactly. Because I got a guy later on that ran the 40, and it wasn't a great time, but it was either way. So like I said, he doesn't exactly fit Poles' mold, but he has that unique versatility. Like I said, where he can play tackle, guard. He can probably play center. I guess he has played center, last year at Georgia, who was more or less an NFL-sized offensive line and defense that he was going against in practice every day. So it might be enough to make him worth a shot where he's kind of just a unique case. We'll see. I think I would rather go with the Texas A&M guy you had actually and flip kind of what we did. But I think this could be a very interesting guy kind of to watch in that mid-second round.
Yeah, I liked him too. I think I did put him in my last mock draft. So, he obviously has shown out and he's held his value. I had him in the third round as well. So I like the pick. I think that the Bears could definitely benefit from either of these guards or tackle or any of these offensive linemen that we talked about so far. But this next guy that I'm picking in the third round at the 71st pick is someone that the Bears should absolutely look into because this is the most unspoken about position right now for the Bears is the defensive back position. I know that we've been talking about Tyrann Mathieu potentially coming to the Bears. If that hasn't happened yet, I mean, his market value keeps dropping because he's going to start getting desperate and want to get money. But at the third round, 71st pick, the Bears need to address the defensive back position. And I'm going with Jermaine Waller, defensive back, Virginia Tech. We've talked about this guy before. 6'1", 180. He's a big defensive back. That's something that the Bears really needed this past season going against big wide receivers. And, look at Devontae Adams, who isn't in the NFC North anymore. Thank you. But overall, I think that there still is big guys that with the Bears. I mean, every team is going to have a big wide receiver, a big tight end. Mm-hmm. And, you can't get burned. And that's what happened with Duke Shelley. That's what happened with a lot of our DBs this past season that wasn't named Jalen Johnson. So he's a ball hawk too. And we don't know how we're going to use Thomas Graham Jr. yet with Deion Bush headed to Kansas City, by the way. So I think Thomas Graham Jr. is going to get a lot more time on either special teams or this defensive unit. But we just don't have a big guy that like a Mueller. And I think that this guy could definitely do it. Waller started all 11 games last year at cornerback, which is where the Bears need aside from Jalen Johnson. He tied the ATC last year in interceptions with 4. He was 10th in the FBS overall. One of 3 players with 4 interceptions and 1 touchdown, 1 for a touchdown return this past season. He had 45 tackles, 30 of them being solo. This guy gets after the ball and can improve our defense significantly. I like the pick a lot. I think that's the Bears now in the first 3 picks have addressed all 3 key areas of need with young, good talent. So, Tony, I like that you're going with lineman again with this next pick. And this guy's name, good luck. That's all I'm going to say before you say it. But who are you picking in the third round?
Oh, this is an easy one. Matt Waletzko, baby. That's an easy name right there. Tackle out of North Dakota. So I do agree with you. I was thinking about maybe going with a defensive back here, but I really think that offensive line and wide receiver, we just got to take as many swings as we can. The old joke that, the Jets should just draft a quarterback, all 7 picks, just what'll work out. That's honestly kind of how I feel here for the Bears. So Matt Waletzko, tackle out of North Dakota. A little disclaimer here. I don't love that I'm taking 2 FCS players within the first 3 picks, but I do think these are good players. I think the FCS has gotten a lot better just in terms of providing talent. We've seen plenty of busts from the Power 5 conferences, so it's not necessarily fair to pick on the FCS, but I get the drawbacks. So this guy, he's interesting. He is 6'8", 312 pounds with 36 in a.
Tony loves going for the biggest lineman possible.
They're interesting. I think that they're freaks and they're just these special guys. Like Jordan Davis will be up at the top of the draft. These guys are just freaks, and I think that you can work with them. Like I said, he's got 36 and an 1/8 inch arms, just really long arms. He ran a 5.0340, which pretty good. He's moving at 6'8". 312. So he does fit the mold of that Ryan Poles quick lineman. He's very long, obviously athletic, and he works hard during run blocking scenarios. I'm going to give you a weakness because it's important that we look at both sides. We're not just like he's going to be the greatest lineman that's ever played the offensive line position. So there are questions about his pass blocking ability, which is unfortunate, but he would be more of a right tackle, so he would be the guy in theory leading the run blocking downfield. So that is the biggest drawback according to combine scouting reports. However, they did add it should be fixable through coaching. It's not a permanent issue. It is just kind of a little bit of technique stuff. So that is my third round pick. And now we can go with our 4th overall pick. round 5, 146th pick via Houston. So I'm going to start with, this is where I finally take a defensive back, and that's Chris Steele with an E on the end there. He's a corner out of USC. He's 6 foot tall, 187 pounds. He ran a 4.48 40, 37.5-inch vertical jump. So pretty good. I think that's the same as the wide receiver I took in the, with our first overall pick. He was a highly touted prospect out of high school. He didn't necessarily live up to it at USC. However, as a Notre Dame fan, I watched some USC football the past few years. They weren't exactly building a culture of success at that program the last few years. So I don't want to blame him necessarily. He's very highly instinctual. That was like every single comment that these combine scouts had was, yeah, he didn't, his stats weren't great, but his eyes instinctually go to the backfield. Yeah, it wasn't great, but instinctually he can, flip his hips around. It's all instinctual, that's the hardest to teach. So I think that he would really benefit from some good defensive coaching, which, don't know if you heard, we got a pretty good defensive coach as our head coach now, who knows how to build a staff. So I think it could be a steal. It could be a guy that, like I said, he just had a rough go of it at USC, dropped pretty low, and then now with someone who can actually build him up, mold him, teach him how to play football, unlike all those USC coaches, he could actually have success in the NFL for, honestly, a pretty late round pick, pretty good steal, because his name's Chris Steele.
And I like the little play on words there, but also, I obviously you guys can tell Tony loves Notre Dame. So that's just in his blood to not like USC. And that pick was very hard for him, but he did it, and we're very proud of him. Mm-hmm. So what we're going to do with the last couple picks is we're going to have a kind of a speed round here. I know that I still have to go into my 4th overall pick. Just want to get you guys know that we're not going to get too far into details about these guys, but we're going to go into what matters about them. So with my 4th overall pick, Troy Anderson, linebacker out of Montana State. This guy is 6'3.5", 243 pounds. He's built like an absolute tank. Fun fact about him is that he was a quarterback when he started in college. And then he's like, hey, I want to go to a different position, became a linebacker. So pretty much the quarterback of the defense, if you think about it. And he became an absolute tank. He has a 4.42 40 time for that big of a guy. Quick. And someone wrote that he said, this guy is all gas, no brakes. I love that saying. That is my favorite saying of all time. If I can get it on a shirt, I would wear it every day. All gas, no brakes. That's what this guy would bring to the Bears defense. And kind of like a Brian Urlacher, Lance Briggs, Mike Singletary kind of feel. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. We have a guy named Roquan Smith who's also all gas, no brakes. So high endurance, can be anywhere on the field at any time. He is weak in the open field, but that's something that's very fixable. Could be a great special teams player at the beginning of his career and eventually start. So I really like Troy Anderson out of Montana State. Let's go to our 5th pick now, Tony, and I'm going to start things off. Round 5, 148. I'm going with Neil Farrell Jr., defensive lineman, LSU. With the Larry Ogunjobi news, I was like, hey, let's go out and get a big guy. And this guy is big, 6'4", 338. Very large guy. His scouting report says he can break off the block very well. He handles double teams and has great vision, which makes him dangerous against the run. But his endurance, he's slow off the ball. So there's areas of need for him to fill. Obviously, you get some of the best coaching, weightlifting coachings on the planet in the NFL. I like this guy a lot in the 5th round, and he could drop late, could be a late round steal.
Yeah. So obviously, a lot of these guys we're going to mention anyway, they have weaknesses. That's why they're 5th, 6th round picks. So my guy is Otito Ogabania. That was
I give that to you. I
practiced that 3 times too, and I still don't know. So he's defensive tackle out of UCLA, 6'4", 324, just kind of a bigger guy. He had 29 reps on the bench press, which is decent. Nothing, not blowing anything out of the water, but it's decent. He probably won't be a star. Like I said, he probably won't even be that much necessarily a long-term starter, but what he can do is he can fill a role, and he can fill that role that we need, which is just defensive tackle depth. We need that right now. He's got the length and the strength to set an edge and spill the run. Like he's not bad. It's just, there are definitely some worries about his upside.
I feel like you just made a poem right there.
Yeah, it was pretty good, right? I know. I'm a wordsmith. So he's also a good worker with high football character, according to scouts. So And, I think they're just trying to say nice things about him at that point. Either way, the main point on him is, I think, like I said, we just need depth. And this is kind of a guy that will be available at that spot. And he does have the size to just kind of stand in the middle and make sure no one gets past him. So now we're going to move into our final pick 6, round 6, 185th pick. I'm going to start. So I have Kyle Phillips with 1 L. There's a Kyle Phillips with 2 L's. He's a defensive tackle. Also went to UCLA, just like this wide receiver. 5'11", 189 pounds. He ran a 4.58 40, 33.5-inch vertical jump. Not great. 124-inch broad jump. He's a slot receiver. That's basically what he is. He's a little slot receiver, but he could also be a return man. That was one of his big things at UCLA. He was one of Chip Kelly's first recruits at UCLA. He's shifty and he's quick. And there's a reason he's going to be a late round pick, because he is, like I say, he's kind of undersized. He's not necessarily a standout wide receiver, but we do kind of need just some special teams guys that we know we can rely on. I know we've had some issues when, we haven't had, Tariq Cohen, and then I always forget his name, but it doesn't matter. Jakeem Grant. I wanted to call him Javonte Green. Jakeem Grant. Obviously, when they weren't back there, we've had some troubles back returning kicks, returning punts. So it'd be nice to kind of shore up that spot too, because it's important. Nick, what you got?
And speaking of special teams, I'm going with my final pick. And this is probably going to be like, what to a lot of people, but I'm going with a punter, Blake Hayes from Illinois. Why? Because Pat O'Donnell's gone. Pat O'Donnell was a big guy. He was like 6'4", 6'5", depending on how you looked at everything. But if you look at him and Santos in pictures, like there is a very distinct difference. And he is low-key a very athletic guy, just like Pat O'Donnell was. 6'6", 225 as a punter. Just want to put that out there. Great tradition in Chicago to keep large punters. Tony likes tall linemen. I guess punters is my kind of thing. Bears want to go big in regards to players. Why not go in all different aspects besides obviously your kicker in Santos? Have this guy come in, could make some noise. So that is our mock draft. Tony, I think you did a great job. I think you and I are, we're going to send this to Ryan Poles, see what he thinks. And maybe we could put a parlay on this if the Bears draft it. Just imagine that parlay. That would be, odds would be like what? 12,000 million jillion, and we put $1 down, and hey, we win the whole thing. So something like that. But thank you very much for joining this episode of Just Another Year Chicago. My name is Nick Rohde, joined alongside Tony Cepeda, and we'll see you guys next time.